be of the mindset that I'm going to start today and I'm not going to see any reward for the next 12 months, but just simply be focused on, as you said, providing value. At some point, you're going to get a shot.
It's easy for you to say, oh, I got busy this week, so I didn't get to reach out to those 10 agents that I was supposed to. But in reality, it's because you didn't have the confidence to do so. So I just pushed through it.
On today's episode, we're joined by Ryan Olson, top loan officer in Las Vegas, Nevada. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and leave me any comments that you have. Today, I'm joined by Ryan Olson. Ryan, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. So I want to dive in with for you with social media here. Now, I follow you on Instagram. You do a fantastic job. Where do you see social media fitting in your business in general? You have a marketing strategy. You have a number of things that you do to try to generate business. How important and where do you see social media fitting in?
I think a lot of people in our industry, they'll mistakenly consider social media like if I post one post, how many buyers, or if I post 100 posts, how many buyers will I get from those posts? But the way I see it is just an ongoing reminder to my sphere. So I don't have an incredibly large following, but I was born and raised here in Las Vegas, and I know people in other states and licensed in other states and all that. And a lot of the deals that I close as a direct result of social media are usually people who maybe I have not talked to in like over a decade, but I grew up with here in Vegas. So I have an example of a friend that I closed a deal for a couple months ago where, we don't hang out very often or whatever, but he's constantly seeing my videos, whether even some of those videos that got like 300 views. And I'm like, man, why am I not getting more engagement? But it's just my sphere is constantly seeing that. And so that's the biggest value of social for me. Yeah.
Yeah, because really the key in that situation is staying consistently in front of people, right? And so for you, and I like what you're saying because, and I noticed this very early on. I'm new to social media. Obviously, we've got some pretty high-end folks running around AWM and people that do it at a high level. But one of the things I noticed very early on was if you kind of look at a process, whether it's with a customer, a referral partner, there is a sales cycle that you have to go through. And when you present yourself on social media, you can sort of already bypass those first steps 1 and 2 because they already sort of know you. They already kind of trust you. And that first initial conversation that you have with them, you've already done all of that. And I think for me, what I noticed is that it sort of shortens that sales cycle and gets you in a position to close whatever it is that you're trying to close much faster than if you didn't have that. How do you see that?
I agree. Here's another example that will kind of prove that point. So I have like a Toyota 4Runner. It's like lifted off-road and all that. And I'm part of the Vegas Toyota off-road on Facebook groups. And so someone on there posted, I know this isn't really on topic, but do you guys anyone know a good lender here? And, when you see those recommendations on Facebook, there's always like 50 of them. So it's like almost like, why do I even try? But one of my friends in that group tagged me on there. And then the guy reached out to me and he said, there were 50 people that were recommended on there, but you're the only one that really had anything related to mortgage on your site, on your Facebook. So when he went and looked at me, he saw 20 examples of me showcasing my expertise as a mortgage professional. So that's the reason why he chose me.
So you basically had bypassed all of your competitors because of what you were showing on your site. He could see very clearly that you were a professional.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's excellent. So what other forms of marketing, I guess, do you deploy in your efforts to build customer base, referral partners? What's your top 1 or 2 go-to strategies?
So my top 1 is honestly just building relationships with real estate agents. A lot of people in the industry these days are saying like, don't just rely on that, but that really has been my number 1 source. Social really complements that too, because a lot of them want to create video and don't know how and all that. But just slowly building relationships with referral partners is really the best way, and just my sphere. But just being a really reliable source to them, because fortunately for some of us, the bar can be kind of low, but just follow up or closing on time and stuff like that. So just building relationships slowly. And the hard part with that is what I struggle with is there are agents out there that really need a good lender, that maybe they have like a mediocre one, but they also have 20 other people and 20 other lenders asking them to work with them too. So how do they weed me from the other one? So I just try to slowly provide value, and I probably a lot less or a lot more than most don't ask for really anything when trying to build those relationships, and just to see as much as I can provide to them. And then, I slowly build those relationships.
That interesting you say that, because I always say that it's, first of all, the process, and if we're going to focus on real estate agents, it's a 12-month process. And that if you can be of the mindset that I'm going to start today and I'm not going to see any reward for the next 12 months, but just simply be focused on, as you said, providing value, information that gives them benefit, and just be consistent during that 12-month period. At some point, you're going to get a shot.
Right.
But the problem that most of us have is that we don't have the determination to hang in there for those 12 months. How do you see that?
It's really relevant to some of the things that I've been focusing on lately, because I'm really good at getting the initial meeting with an agent, and in those meetings, I'll just say, well, let's have a chat and let's see if there's any way I can help you and if we would be good together. Sometimes we really feel like it's not a good, we're not good together. But so what I would do after the meeting is, like, I would find that I didn't do barely any follow up with a lot of them, and it's like kind of wasting a lot of time, even wasting their time, kind of. And I'm not so great that they're just going to be thinking about me all the time. So, like, I've created it a lot more systematized lately. I've just kind of looked at, like, making sure I always have tasks to help them on my CRM, and it's just like, it's not so much like, hey, can you send me a deal, but just having tasks on my CRM to be like, hey, let me inform you about this program that might help this type of buyer.
Yep.
Or if you ever need help with open houses, or if you ever need advice on how to create video, just any little things that I can help that's relative to them. And just like you said, just going over a longer period of time. And then, maybe the ones that didn't work with me initially will eventually start to, eventually give me a shot if I stay in contact with them long enough.
So you have to have a certain level of confidence in yourself, right? Just to do this business, even to walk in the door, right? But to have that sort of an attitude, how do you build that confidence in yourself and have the ability to ride that out for a long period of time? Where do you get that?
Just honestly, I've had to build it, because in the past it's been easy for me to say, like, oh, that person's not going to want to work with me because of XYZ, but you're just like completely shutting out the option for it to work out. So I just constantly remind myself, like, the only way I'll really be able to see it through and whether or not they're actually going to want to work with me is if I stay in contact with them. So, and it is like a confidence, because a lot of the time you're like intimidated, especially if they're a real successful agent or someone like that, you're intimidated, but I think you're just overthinking it. You're overthinking it when, it's easy for you to say, oh, I got busy this week, so I didn't get to reach out to those 10 agents that I was supposed to. But in reality, it's because you didn't have the confidence to do so. So I just push through it. Sometimes I really don't want to. Sometimes I'm like, I am intimidated by these people that I'm reaching out to, but I just kind of force myself through it. I don't know if that's a good enough answer.
No, it really is. Was it, were you always that type of a person, or did you find yourself, getting to a point in your career where just something snapped for you, something changed, a mindset shift for you?
Honestly, I would say it's on and off, because sometimes I get too comfortable, especially when you have business coming in. You get too comfortable and you're like, I don't feel like it is grueling, reaching out, and like, it is, you have to be you're being vulnerable in a way, it's please like me, you're kind of saying to them,
Right.
so it's kind of grueling work. But so, like, especially when I've gotten busy over the years, I will put that to the side. But then when, the market's a little bit tougher, I'm like, man, I really wish I would have did more follow-up. So I think just remembering that, and just, when I've been in those positions, I tell myself, I'm always going to focus on marketing and sales. And I'm still not perfect at it, but I think I'm slowly, like, chipping away at getting better at that and reducing the amount of times that I will, like, put it off.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Oh, it does. And rejection is a big part of our business. Does rejection still impact you? Does it affect you?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But I honestly just try to remember that, even if I reached out to 100 agents, I would say it's even unlikely. I'd have to have a bigger sample. Like if I reached out to 1,000 agents, there might be like one or two that was a jerk, and so what? Like they're never going to remember me again, and they don't know how great of a lender I would be for them. I always remind myself, like, some of these people that just rejected me, like they would be lucky to have me.
If they only knew, right?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I honestly feel that way. I've done this long enough. I had a friend that became a lender, and he is kind of introverted. And I was telling him, like, if you have free time, just reach out to real estate agents, see if you could be valuable to them. Don't be annoying. And he got back to me. He's like, I talked to an agent, and they said that they don't like to be contacted, cold called. I'm like, of course they don't. Like nobody wants to be contacted that way. But the way that I get through it is I remind myself, like, they would be lucky to work with a lender like me. So if someone rejected me or whatever, I just remember it's because they don't know me, and they have their own stuff going on, and they've probably been burned by other lenders before, so they have the right to reject a lender that's reaching out to them that they never met before.
Yeah, I mean, I think that those are, and that's a path that you take and you learn by experience. And obviously, as you continue to gain that confidence, it does become easier to, to get over those hurdles. Let me ask you a little bit about coaching and mentorship. Do you have a mentor in this business?
I mean, Neil, I've worked with him since I started. He's the one that brought me into the mortgage industry. And I don't have like an official coach or mentor that I pay for anything, but he's always been available for anything I need, and pretty much always can rely on his advice and on the way to go about things.
What would you say is the single most important thing you learned from Neil?
I would say over the last 4 or 5 years, it's really just putting yourself out there the way that he does. Because even when we started working with you 10 years ago, maybe, about 10 years ago, like if you and I were told that he's going to be like a social media mogul, we would be like, no, that's not Neil. He keeps his head down and finds business and grinds really hard, but he doesn't like social media and all that. But he cared about his own success so bad that he found a way to not just do it, but really enjoy doing it and make it work. So I would say just, you can't just say, oh, this isn't for me. You have to figure out what works and do it, and putting yourself out there and doing it. That's one of the biggest things I've learned. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you had to pick something, what keeps you up at night? What fear do you? I have fear always, right? It doesn't matter how long you've been in this business. There's something that I'm worried about or that keeps me up at night. As I said, do you have what fears do you have?
Honestly, being a new father, just not being able to provide for my kids in the best way possible, So that's probably made me a lot more hungry. Like,
Yeah.
And then also, especially as of lately, like just falling a victim to the grind and maybe missing out that way in a family regard. So like one thing I've been really focusing on lately is like, I don't want to be beat up by every deal all the time. Like what fears me is just not figuring out the best systems I can, besides growing my business, but assuming I've grown my business, but still finding out the best system I can to like not drive myself crazy and not take up all my time doing it.
So basically being kind of committed to a positive process that makes you efficient, productive, really kind of maximizes your time because, as you said, you got a family at home, right? You've got a wife, you've got 2 young kids. What sacrifices do you make with your family for the sake of your business? And would you say ultimately, do you feel like it's worth it?
I would say absolutely it's worth it. There are sacrifices, but like if I wasn't in this industry, who knows what other sacrifices I would have.
Sure.
So sacrifices are when we're going to put away family time to do something, and then I have a really big important deal that could go under contract if I take this call right now. But my kids are too little to even know what's going on, but my wife understands. She's very supportive in that way, and she understands like I have to see that call, but that could have turned like that 1 hour that we were going to, spend together into me taking that call, and then, that hour's over. So that's kind of the sacrifice. But what I would say on the opposite side of that is like one thing in this industry, if I wanted to go on vacation, like I'm going to Carlsbad after Thanksgiving, I don't have to get your permission. Like I don't have to beg you for my time. So,
Yeah.
you know, those are the sacrifices. I have to spend time, outside of business hours and all that. But then I also get the reward of, as long as I'm taking care of my business, I can do those things, as I want.
Yeah. And I think that's what keeps you focused and positive, right? You understand there's two sides to this.
Yes.
And what I'm kind of learning from you is that you understand that there could be a different way to earn a living and a different life for you. And it might not be so great, right? That this is a business that provides you with a lot of opportunity, tremendous upside. Yes, sacrifice, but ultimately, probably we'd all agree is worth it in the end.
Yes.
And I think you're fortunate to have your wife being supportive of you, because I'll tell you, after 35 years in this business, if you don't have a supportive person at home with you, it makes things a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you about relationships. So obviously you understand the importance of those and how they are just critical to your business. What would you say is the kind of top one or two things that you focus on when building a relationship?
Honestly, just sounds kind of corny, but just always remembering just to put the client and maybe your referral partners first. I mean, kind of contradictory to making sure you have your family time and all that, right? You got to make sure that's correct. But so, for example, someone was just asking me, what is the minimum loan amount you can do? And I don't know what your thoughts are on this as the owner of the company, but like a lot of lenders will say, well, it's this amount because they're thinking about, I want to make this much.
Yeah.
But this client wanted to put a whole lot down to make their monthly payment low enough to be able to afford the house. So I'm like, I'm not going to make much on that, but I'm not going to say I only do loans at X amount, because whatever's best for them, as long as it's a compliant loan that we can do, I'll do it. So just honestly, just always trying to think of the best interests of the client, referral partners, and I think it comes back to you in ways that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's very simple, right? I mean, it's so uncomplicated. If you put that out there as sort of your, beacon of light, everything else becomes, I think, a lot easier, right?
Yeah.
We deal with a lot of different types of clientele. So you may have to, in one conversation, you're talking to the CEO of a company. In the next conversation, you might be talking to somebody who's a school teacher.
Right.
It's a very dynamic industry. How have you learned really to adapt your personality or your presentation to be able to accommodate anybody that you might come across?
I guess you just make sure that you're really listening to your clients and what their needs are. Because a lot of the times their specific needs are just something that's just not possible. So like sometimes when you get those like higher level clients, CEOs or whatever, they're used to kind of getting their own way, or kind of molding things in the way that they want. That's why they're maybe successful people, but it's just not possible to do some of the things that they want. So like you just really very carefully communicate to them like why you can't do what they're needing or whatever, or what you can do. Or like someone like the school teacher, maybe they really need something, but it's not because they're used to like making things work. Maybe it's just they need their payment a certain way because that's all they can afford. So I think just really heavy on the education and communicating to them. So instead of just sending them a quick email with some basic notes, or just saying, on the phone, here's X, Y, and Z that they probably won't remember, I'll take the time to like very carefully write it out in an email, and maybe even a video explanation, or most of the time video explanation. And hey, here's what you wanted, but here's why, that's why we have to go this route instead of the route that you want.
I think that's right. And you said something very early on in that part about listening. And I think that's the part that a lot of us miss. And especially in an environment where you do dozens and hundreds of mortgages, and it can be a little bit like an assembly line. But if we remember that at the bottom of all of that is a customer, is a husband, a wife, with a family,
Right.
who have needs, that we need to really listen to them. And I think what I always try to do is make that first conversation about them.
Right.
It's not about me, it's about them, me understanding their needs, what their goals might be. If you keep that top of mind, you'll always do well.
Yeah. I think in our industry, there's just like probably on average, there's an overall lack of information provided to the client. So just like really communicating to them and really keeping them informed on all aspects of transactions when getting a home loan. I think that really solves a lot of problems and keeps the clients happy and translates to usually a much smoother transaction.
Yep.
But it takes a lot of extra time.
It does.
But that's why it's probably lacking so much. People don't want to put in the time to do that.
And that's what sets you apart, right?
I would say so.
I mean, look, we tend to sometimes, I think, we do this so many times a year that we forget our typical customer may only do this a couple times in their lifetime.
Right, exactly.
And so we have to keep that in mind as we're kind of rattling through all this information that to us is second, it's second nature. To them, it's the first time that they might be hearing this.
That's really important because you really do probably get caught up in the fact that you just focus on these mortgage transactions day after day, year after year, and maybe you don't even realize that you're not explaining it to the client in a way that they can like unpack it and understand it.
Yeah, we talked about support from your wife, which is critical. What about your support team here at AWM? How important are they to your business?
Oh, extremely important. And that's probably why I've been here for over 10 years, right? So like that I could only be as good as the staff that we work with or the team behind the scenes that gets it closed or is efficient. And so I could do everything right on my end, but if something goes wrong behind the scenes, then it's all on me. Like you'll never hear, my underwriter or my processor didn't do this. It's always like, hey, I didn't get this done for you. So I never really have to do that because I can always rely on that. So like, I couldn't imagine, not having the support that we do have, and just like, just the routines that we have in place, and just making sure that we have the tools to make sure we always close on time, and we always, it's not like a big circus for the client. Like everything's always organized and filed.
Yeah, you have a very well-oiled machine, and that starts with you as well. And obviously, Neil and his team, all of that plays a role in that. But I think, you start that whole process by being very professional, by providing all of the necessary documentation, and packaging a good loan. That's where it all really starts. But I think, for us, as far as that support staff is concerned, you're absolutely right. We're nothing without them, and ultimately they become a very big part of our success.
Yeah, and the ones that help us get the deals closed, they actually care about getting the deal closed. Like if I had to deal with underwriting across the country that I never met, and I don't really have access other than email, like I couldn't imagine on some of these deals how we would get some of it done. But some of these maybe tricky deals, they're willing to hop on a call and say, hey, you need to figure out X, Y, and Z in this format, and send it over to me, and we can get it, things like that.
Well, if you think about it, our business is, to me, I view it as unique in that there are so many people involved in the process of a home loan. I mean, so how many opportunities are there for somebody to, even obviously not trying, but make a mistake, to miss something? There are dozens of people, it seems, involved in a mortgage process, and so it's definitely a challenge, but in the end, worthwhile, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we are providing people with maybe the largest purchase that they'll ever make in their life, and hopefully something that leads them towards some sort of building of wealth for their family.
One tangent on that, or kind of related to that, you said there's so many things that are involved and so many things have to go right. Someone was posting on social the other day, like it's going to be sooner than you think before agents and lenders are replaced by AI. And maybe that might be true one day, but just working on my files today, I'm like, there's so many little things that a human could, like, one problem I solved today was because I knew how to word the questions correctly to get the result faster. Like little things like that, I don't think we would be replaced for a long time because of all those little human elements that are required to get a deal done a lot of the time.
I agree with you. There are so many nuances, and look, no two customers are alike. And I think that's one of the challenges, but also I think the fun of what we do, that you're going to come into the office and there will be no 2 days will be alike.
Right.
But Ryan, thanks for joining me. Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you. Hope you had a good time.
Definitely. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks.